My name is Matthew McGivney, and this is my AP Art History project for Coach Nance's second period class. This is a Smart History review video on the wedding feast at Cana by an artist known as Paolo Veronese. It was made in 1563 during the late Italian Renaissance, and it's a very, very large painting. To give you a bit of an idea, the average human comes to approximately this height on the painting, so it's absolutely massive. The painting was commissioned initially by a Veronesian monastery, and it's had a bit of a rough history since. In 1797, Napoleon actually stole the painting, and it was cut in half, and only to eventually be stitched back together. In the early 1990s, water was actually spilled on it on accident, and so they had to do restoration in order to fix that, and the painting was torn while they were trying to rehang it, so they had to fix the tears in the painting as well. Let's take a look at what's going on in the painting. So the composition is divided into two sections by a horizontal balustrade in the middle. In the upper section, it shows the clouds soaring across the sky, and in the bottom section, there's this contrast with this chaotic group of people. The upper section shows a good example of Greek and Roman architecture. There's Corinthian columns in the very back and Doric columns towards the foreground. There's also a tall arcaded tower in the background where some birds fly past. So this picture is actually a very religiously connected painting. It takes place in an open courtyard, and it is actually portraying a wedding. But the bride and groom aren't in the center. The bride and groom are portrayed all the way on the left. And that's important because Jesus is actually the figure in the center. And in real life, since it's not Jesus' wedding, he wouldn't be centered. So his placement in this painting is, and it alludes to the religious importance of the painting. Jesus is the only figure, well, there's two figures with halos, him and Mary. Mary's to his left, but he's the only figure who's looking directly at you. And then above Jesus on the balustrade is a group of what is likely to be butchers or men who are preparing meat, and historians believe that this meat is actually lamb, and that's symbolic because Jesus is known as the Lamb of God. In the bottom right-hand corner is a depiction of a biblical scene. This biblical scene being portrayed is one of Jesus' miracles. It's actually his first miracle, when he turned the water into wine. This is shown through the barrels of wine being poured near the wine taste testers. Aside from these main figures, Jesus is surrounded by his disciples, his clerks, princes, Venetian noblemen, and several servants. These add to the 130 plus different figures in the painting. There's also lots of dogs shown, some birds flying above, and in the very front a group of Renaissance musicians playing instruments typical of the Renaissance. The food is also pretty important because the food being eaten at the time is fruit, and that would have been a dessert actually, so it doesn't make sense for men on the balustrade to be preparing meat, so this evidence just further reinforces the idea that it's a symbol of Jesus as the Lamb of God. Supposedly Veronese included himself as well. He's believed to be a figure in white cloak in the background. He used a very interesting theme in this painting. He mixed sacred elements with not so sacred elements, creating this sacred versus profane theme. And basically the two juxtapose each other throughout the work. For example, there are symbols of Jesus' passion placed very closely to luxurious silver vessels and tableware. The furniture, the dresses of the women, and the crystal goblets all display the aristocracy at the time, which can also be associated with the profane. Lastly, Veronese used very vibrant colors, and this helped increase the individualization among the characters, which is very important because there's a lot going on. So in order to help the viewer depict which figure is which and separate all the chaotic details going on, his use of vibrant colors was very important. And that's all I have to say on Paolo Venerese's The Wedding Feast at Cana.